The galaxy has one unspoken rule. Never let a human care. Because once a human decides someone is theirs to protect, entire star systems tend to burn trying to change that decision. Station Vex learned that lesson too late. The slave bazaar on Deck 7 roared with noise, hundreds of species shouting prices, threats, and promises in a dozen incompatible languages. Energy cages lined the corridor like trophies. Fear, resignation, and anger hung thick in the recycled air. Aiden Cole stood perfectly still. That alone made him dangerous. Most buyers stared, pointed, reacted. Aiden didn't. His face was calm, bored even, hands buried deep inside the pockets of his battered leather jacket. Years working the outer rim had taught him a simple truth: emotion increased prices. Well, well, hissed Acrylic's merchant, its scaled tongue flicking between hooked teeth. Back again, human? Still shopping for cheap muscle? Aiden shrugged without looking at him. Just browsing. That was when he saw Cage 17. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her body armored in deep crimson scales that shimmered beneath artificial light. 2 massive wings were folded painfully behind her, restrained by crackling energy chains that spat blue sparks with every movement. Her golden eyes locked onto Aiden's, not pleading, not hostile. Assessing. A warrior's stare. A Drenari, the merchant said, noticing Aiden's pause. From the legendary Third Wing cohort. Worth a fortune, once. Aiden finally turned. Once. The merchant leaned closer. Neural combat link severed. Can't bond with a battlemech anymore. Broken. Useless for war. Aiden stepped closer to the cage. Up close he saw the scars, old plasma burns, blade marks, fractures that had healed crooked. This wasn't livestock. This was a veteran. The Drenari woman tightened her grip on the bars. Her voice, when she spoke, was unexpectedly soft. Please. Aiden raised an eyebrow. She shifted, revealing a smaller figure hiding behind her wings. A girl, no more than 16. Same crimson scales, but duller. Her wings were underdeveloped, trembling with fear. Tear tracks streaked her golden eyes. My sister, the warrior said quickly. Ava. She's never fought. Never hurt anyone. The merchant clicked irritably. Emotional accessories cost extra. They'll separate us, the warrior continued, panic slipping through her controlled tone. Sell her to the pleasure districts on Zephan Prime. Aiden's jaw tightened. He knew exactly what happened to young exotic species there. Everyone did. They just pretended they didn't. Names? He asked. I am Syrah, she said, straightening despite the chains. Formerly Third Wing Commander of Drain Prime. Pride flickered through the damage. And you think, the merchant sneered, a human freight hauler can afford legends? Aiden leaned casually against the cage. I can afford bad decisions. Ava spoke then, her voice barely audible. We've heard stories. Humans don't see property. They see people. Aiden exhaled a short, bitter laugh. Kid, whoever told you that left out the fine print? Syrah lowered herself slowly, then knelt. A Drenari commander kneeling before anyone was unthinkable. I can give you something, she said. Coordinates. A Forerunner vault my cohort discovered before the invasion. Technology worth billions. Free us, and it's yours. Aiden studied her for a long moment. Forerunner tech is illegal, he said flatly. So is slavery in human-controlled space, Syrah replied calmly. That one landed. Aiden thought of his sister. Thought of promises he'd made to never get involved again. Thought of how every promise had already failed. Damn it, he muttered. 20 minutes later, and his entire life savings gone, Aiden walked toward the docking bay, ownership datapad glowing in his hand. Behind him followed 2 Drenari females who no longer belonged to the market. None of them noticed the merchant already sending a silent transmission. The docking bay smelled like scorched coolant and cheap fuel. Home, by Aiden's standards. His freighter, Wayfarer's Luck, sat crooked in its assigned berth, hull patched with mismatched alloy plates from a dozen star systems. It wasn't pretty, but it flew. Most days that was enough. Ship's not much, Aiden said as he tapped the ramp control. And I'm not exactly running a rescue charity. Syrah stepped forward first. The energy restraints were gone now, but her posture remained guarded, shoulders tight, wings tucked close as if expecting another chain at any second. Ava stayed half a step behind her, clutching her sister's arm like an anchor. You freed us, Syrah replied. That alone carries weight. I didn't free you, Aiden corrected. I bought you. Coalition law's a mess. Until I file emancipation papers, the system still thinks you're cargo. Ava's grip tightened. Aiden noticed. He sighed. Relax. Once we're out of Vex space, I'll submit the paperwork. Human-controlled zones don't tolerate slavery. Takes time, but it'll stick. They boarded. The interior of the Wayfarer was cramped but clean. Narrow corridors, exposed wiring, gravity plating that hummed a little louder than it should. Aiden dropped his jacket on a chair and powered up the cockpit. Ground rules, he said without turning. Meals are shared. Everyone works. No secrets that can get us killed. You, he nodded at Syrah, look like you know security. Syrah inclined her head. I commanded boarding teams. Good. You're head of ship defense until further notice. He glanced at Ava. You ever been off-planet before? She shook her head. Then congratulations, he said. You're learning fast. Maintenance and AV basics, maybe comms if you don't panic under pressure. Ava blinked. I won't fail. Didn't say you couldn't, Aiden replied. The engines rumbled to life. With a shudder, the Wayfarer's luck pulled away from Station Vex, slipping into open space like a scratched coin vanishing into the dark. Only then did Syrah finally exhale. She placed a clawed hand lightly on Aiden's shoulder. Why? He didn't answer immediately. Stars streaked past the viewport as the ship entered drift. Humans, he said slowly, have a bad habit. We see a line we're told not to cross, and then we stare at it until it dares us. Syrah studied him. You could have walked away. I tried, he said. Didn't take. Ava smiled faintly. The first real smile since he'd seen her. They didn't notice the first shadow until hours later. Aiden was halfway through recalibrating the jump drive when the proximity alarm chirped. Soft, polite, deadly. Unknown vessel, Ava said from the comm station, voice shaking but steady enough. Running dark. Matching our vector. Syrah's wings flared slightly. Hunter-class profile? Aiden checked the readout. Yeah. Slaver model. He swore under his breath. They tracked us from the station, Ava whispered. Of course they did, Aiden said. No one drops that much money in Vex without consequences. The comm channel crackled open. A distorted voice poured through. Human freighter. Power down and prepare to be boarded. Return Drenari property, and you may continue unharmed. Aiden leaned back in his chair. No, he said calmly. Silence. Then laughter. You don't understand, the voice replied. That cohort belongs to very interested buyers. Syrah stepped forward, eyes burning. They won't stop. Aiden smiled, but there was no humor in it. I know, he said. That's the problem. Because the moment they chose to chase him, they stopped being merchants. They became a threat. And humans were very good at dealing with those. The slaver ship closed the distance with predatory confidence. Aiden watched the tactical display without panic. Hunter-class vessels were faster than freighters, better armed too. Whoever was piloting it assumed this would end quickly. That assumption was their first mistake. Syrah, Aiden said evenly, how long until they're in boarding range? 2 minutes, she replied after a glance at the readouts. Maybe less if they burn hard. Ava swallowed. We can't outrun them, can we? No, Aiden said. So we won't try. He reached beneath the console and pulled out a worn metal case. Inside were no weapons, just data wafers and an old, unassuming control pad. Syrah noticed. You're not armed. I am, Aiden replied. Just not in the way they expect. The slaver ship hailed again. This time the voice was sharper. Last warning, human. Aiden opened the channel. You ever hear the phrase human patience? The channel went silent. Then the slaver ship fired. A bolt of plasma tore past the Wayfarer's luck, close enough to rattle the hull. Ava cried out. Syrah stepped instinctively between her and the viewport, wings flaring wide in a protective arc. Aiden didn't flinch. Stage 1, he murmured, tapping the control pad. Space behind them shimmered. The slaver pilot overcorrected, too late. Invisible gravity wells snapped into place, artificial masses blooming like traps in the dark. The Hunter-class ship slammed sideways as its trajectory collapsed, engines screaming in protest. What did you do? Ava gasped. Cargo modification, Aiden said. Human ships don't just haul freight. We experiment. The slaver ship struggled, thrusters burning hot as it tried to break free. Syrah stared at the readings. Localized gravity snares. That tech is restricted. So is kidnapping, Aiden replied. The slaver captain opened comms again, panic bleeding through the distortion. Disable that field immediately. Aiden leaned closer to the mic. You fired first. That matters where I come from. He cut the channel. Stage 2, he said. The Wayfarer's luck vented heat deliberately. A wave of sensor noise flooded the surrounding space, false signatures blooming in every direction. To targeting systems, the human freighter became a dozen identical ghosts. The slaver ship fired wildly, wasting shots on nothing. Syrah's eyes widened. You were baiting them. Humans are very good at that, Aiden said. We just don't advertise it. But even trapped, the Hunter-class vessel was dangerous. They'll overload their engines, Syrah warned. Break free or tear themselves apart. Aiden nodded. Which brings us to Stage 3. He finally stood. Syrah, he said, meeting her gaze. I need you. Her answer was immediate. Command me. Boarding countermeasures. Non-lethal if possible. A feral smile crossed her face. They won't thank you. I don't need thanks, Aiden said. Just compliance. Minutes later, the slaver ship broke the gravity snare, at a cost. Its engines flared unstable, shields flickering. That was when Aiden opened the comms one last time. Your ship is crippled, he said calmly. Your weapons are locked out by a human override you didn't detect. Power down or you drift until Coalition patrols find you. Silence. Then, what are you? Aiden smiled, tired and cold. I'm the guy who told you no. The slaver ship powered down. Syrah returned from the airlock minutes later, breathing hard but uninjured. They're secured. Alive. Ava rushed to her, relief flooding her face. Aiden slumped into his chair. Good, he said. Because dead slavers don't spread warnings. Syrah looked at him with something new in her eyes, respect edged with awe. They will come again, she said. Others. Stronger. Aiden stared out at the stars. I know, he replied. That's fine. Because somewhere in the dark, a message was already traveling, whispered from port to port, ship to ship. A human had interfered. And the galaxy was about to remember why that was a bad idea. Coalition space began 3 jumps later. The moment the Wayfarer's luck crossed the boundary, Aiden transmitted the emancipation packet. Identity verification. Species protection clauses. Legal declarations that would make the Drenari sisters untouchable by law. The response came back green. Free. Ava let out a breath she'd been holding for years and laughed, soft at first, then uncontrollably. Syrah closed her eyes, wings lowering in a gesture that Aiden later learned was a Drenari sign of release. It's done, Aiden said. No one owns you. Syrah bowed her head. You kept your word. Among my people, that creates a debt. I'm not collecting, Aiden replied. Stick around if you want. Leave if you don't. Ava didn't hesitate. We're staying. Syrah smiled at her, then looked back at Aiden. So are we. They didn't have long to celebrate. A coalition patrol cruiser dropped out of warp ahead of them, massive, clean, bristling with authority. The comm channel opened immediately. Human freighter Wayfarer's luck. You are requested to heave to for inspection. Aiden complied without argument. The inspection officer appeared on screen, a gray-skinned Orvan with artificial eyes that missed nothing. His gaze lingered on Syrah's scars, Ava's nervous posture, then returned to Aiden. You engaged a registered slaver vessel in non-designated space, the officer said. They fired first, Aiden replied. The Orvan tapped his console. Our data supports that. A pause. However, the officer continued, your countermeasures were excessive. Aiden shrugged. They're alive. Another pause. Indeed, the officer said slowly. And because of that, several active slave routes have gone dark in the last 6 hours. Syrah stiffened. Already? The officer inclined his head. Word travels fast. Especially when fear replaces profit. He looked at Aiden again. You've made yourself visible. Aiden smiled faintly. Story of my life. The cruiser disengaged, leaving them alone in open space once more. Later, in the quiet of the ship, Syrah finally spoke the question she'd been holding. The vault, she said. I promised you coordinates. Aiden leaned back. Keep them. She blinked. That knowledge could change human fortunes. Maybe, he said. But some things aren't currency. Ava looked between them. Then why help us at all? Aiden stared at the stars for a long moment. Because humans learned something the hard way, he said. Power isn't what you take. It's what you refuse to let others take. Syrah placed a clawed hand over her heart. Then know this, Aiden Cole. You didn't just free 2 Drenari. She spread her wings fully, scars and all. You awakened a debt carried by an entire people. Weeks later, the message reached the Outer Rim. A human freighter had disrupted multiple slave networks. Not a warship, not a fleet. 1 human, 1 battered ship, 2 former slaves standing beside him. Merchants adjusted routes. Hunters declined contract. Slavers whispered warnings in shadowed ports. If a human says no, walk away. Because humans didn't always fight for territory. Sometimes they fought for people. And when they did, the galaxy learned something important. The most dangerous thing in the universe wasn't a weapon. It was a human who decided you mattered.